Einen wunderschönen Vormittag aus Prag, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Ich begrüße Sie zu unserem Webinar Tschechien Corporate Target Startup Ecosystem Scouting nach Trends, Talents and Targets im Nachbarland. Grüß Gott, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Sie mögen sich vielleicht jetzt fragen, warum wir das Thema Innovation besetzen. Innovation ist ein neuer Bereich für uns. Die Außenwirtschaft Austria hat sich zum Ziel gesetzt, Innovation, ausländische Innovation für österreichische Unternehmen ins Inland zu bringen. Damit ganz klar die Richtlinie ist, wir wollen Ihnen den Zugang zu Innovationen und Talenten mit diesem Webinar eröffnen. Bei Innovationen denkt man sehr oft an Tel Aviv, Hongkong, New York, Silicon Valley. Aber hier in Tschechien ist ein durchaus sehr dynamisches Pflaster, unmittelbar vor der Haustür, leicht zu erreichen und für österreichische Unternehmen leicht zugänglich. Wir haben dabei zwei ganz wichtige Themenblöcke. Das eine ist, wie schaut die tschechische Startup-Szene aus? Und das zweite wahrscheinlich für Sie mindestens ebenso interessant, wie finde ich mein Startup? Wir haben uns zum Ziel gesetzt, für Sie diese beiden Fragen jetzt zu beantworten. Zögern Sie nicht, Fragen zu stellen. Wir werden anschließend diese beantworten mit den Vortragenden. Ich werde jetzt auf Englisch umsteigen. Unsere Vortragenden werden Englisch präsentieren. Deswegen wünsche ich Ihnen noch ein sehr interessantes Webinar. Gerd, could you take over, please?
Thank you, Christian. I want to introduce myself briefly. My name is Gerd Schlattel. I'm the Deputy Commercial Councillor here in Prague. And it's a pleasure for me as well to welcome you today for a topic how to scout for trends, targets and talents in the Czech Republic. I would like to give you, first of all, a brief overview what we will do. And with that, I would like to start with some success stories, because we want to present the Czech Republic to Austrian corporates as a destination when they want to scout for trends, talents and targets, startups, cooperation partners. And this is not only a claim, we have proof of that as well, and very recent proof. One of the recent success stories is the cooperation between the Czech startup based in Brno, Whalebone, and the Austrian telecom operator, telecom provider A1. They just in October this year opened an office at the A1 startup campus in Vienna. And I didn't tell you right now yet what Whalebone is doing. Whalebone is a cybersecurity IT startup, which is anyway a topic which is quite recent, quite fruitful in the Czech Republic when it comes to scouting for trends, targets, and talents. Another topic or another recent news that I would like to tell you about is a recent newspaper article of the Financial Times just 3 weeks ago, depicting the Czech Republic as one of the hubs for cryptocurrencies, blockchain-related technologies. So even in newspapers like Financial Times, Czech Republic is becoming more and more prevalent and interesting for all kinds of corporates looking for, again, targets, trends, and talents. Now, a brief overview of our webinar. What is the goal? What are the goals of our webinar? First of all, I will talk briefly about the Czech startup ecosystem, the Czech startup scene. I will give you some facts and figures. Then, and this is the core of our webinar, we have invited 3 selected speakers of the Czech startup scene that are specialized in scouting for targets, trends, and talents. And all of those 3 speakers have different approaches, and the idea of the webinar, the main idea of the webinar is thus to provide you with different alternatives and options when you want to scout for targets in the Czech Republic. And finally, that will be a brief part of our webinar as well. It's not only about talking about the options, it's also about the specific follow-up options for your company. So with that, I would like to give you and start the 3 speakers that I wanted to mention is David Ulisch. He's the Chief Strategy Officer in Leeds. That's the South Meridian Innovation Center in Brno. Martin Pescher, he's the CEO of Creative Talk. They build companies, they build startups for corporates. And Vlastimir Vodička, he's the CEO of Lead Speaker. It's a company specialized in digital scouting. And now I would like to start with the overview of the Czech startup ecosystem. And at the beginning here, I would like to invite you once again to post questions on this chat function. At the end of the webinar, when all the speakers have introduced their specific options, alternatives for scouting, we will go into a Q&A session and try to answer as many questions as possible from the audience. So let me start with the overview of the Czech startup system. We can see from this slide that, of course, the majority of startups are located in Prague and in Brno. These are the two major hubs. I want to highlight as well that we draw the facts and figures and the data that we present now from a so-called Czech startup report, which was put together by the Aspen Institute in Prague. It's dating from 2016. It's up till now the most recent global and most comprehensive overview of the Czech startup ecosystem. On the next slide, I want to show you in which stages those Czech startups are. Predominantly, the Czech startups are in early stages of development. That means pre-seed and seed stage. On the one hand, of course, that means that they are at the very beginning, mostly at the very beginning of their business activities. On the other hand, I think this is interesting for Austrian corporates because there's not too much competition yet, and there's still a good time to chip into different kinds of cooperation models with Czech startups, to cooperate, to integrate them in their own business endeavors of Austrian corporates. So you see here more than 2/3 are in an early stage of development. The next slide, I think, is a core slide. It's depicting the various industry sectors and that Czech startups are active in. I put out the top 3 areas. It's software as a service, web service, mobile software service, but also big data, data analytics is a big topic, Internet of Things, etc. With that, I would like to tell you more about the internationalization stage of Czech startups. It's I start with the last point. I think this is the most interesting one, that at the moment only 22% are actually having income from abroad, which means that the majority of Czech startups that were part of this Aspen Institute Czech Startup Report 2016, they do not engage in any international activities yet. Again, I would see this as a positive factor for Austrian corporates being interested in working together with Czech startups, since there is not too much competition yet, and many ways to cooperate with Czech startups. When it comes to the services they provide, it's not really surprising. The majority of them, nearly 2/3 of the startups, offer new services and products, and also the majority of them, again, not very surprising, have employ less than 10 people. Because, of course, as we heard before, the majority of them are in an early stage as a company. When it comes to the financial sources, the majority, as we can see, nearly 80% comes from own capital when it comes to funding of Czech startups. A big portion on the second stage, second place, is friends, family, and so-called fools, 3F, and local business angels. So again, this, I think, is an interesting fact for Austrian corporates being interested in working together with Czech startups, since capital seems to be one of the most, or financing seems to be one of the most important and pressing issues for Czech startups. Cooperation and challenges. We see here that at the moment Czech startups are not very well connected to research and development centers. Perhaps one of our speakers, David Ulisch in Brno, will be able to tell us more about that. And of course, the biggest challenges for startups in the Czech Republic, I think that is similar to the startup ecosystem in Austria. The biggest problems are human resources and finances and investments, as I said before already. So with that, I would like to conclude my brief overview over the Czech startup ecosystem. And I would like to invite our first Czech speaker, David Uliš, to join us from Brno, from EATS, the South Moravian Innovation Center. Good morning, David. Greetings from Prague. Just very briefly, David is the Chief Strategy Officer at EATS, the South Moravian Innovation Center, and he had a couple of functions in public administration of regional policy and research and development previously, is one of the core players in the Czech startup ecosystem, the Czech startup scene, and we're very happy that David joins us for this webinar. David, with no much further ado, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Gerhard. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be with you this morning, a nice sunny morning here in Brno at least. What I would like to share with you is some basic information about who we are, JIC, what we do in a nutshell, and then more specifically about what we can do with and for Austrian corporates. I'm not controlling my slides, so I will always ask Gerhard to switch for the next slide. So the next one, please. Yeah. What our mission at JIC is to empower people to grow businesses that can change the world. That means basically we are aiming for client companies that can have a wider societal impact, and we work with both early stage companies and mature companies that we help to grow further to the next stage and help them to innovate. We support creation of brand new companies, so people with ideas who don't have a business yet. We work with existing startups and help them to accelerate their growth. We also work with SMEs that have been in existence for a long time, and we help them to get new energy to start up new activities. This is done through one of our dedicated programs. What we also do is connect partners in the ecosystem, company to company, but also company to academia, also companies, especially early stage companies, to potential investors. And last but not least, we are also responsible for managing the regional innovation strategy in our region. So we are actually given the task for coordinating and in many cases also implementing projects defined by the regional government and the city. That takes me to the next slide, Gerhard. We are a not-for-profit agency with 6 founders. That is the South Moravian regional government, the city of Brno, and the 4 local universities that all have equal decision-making powers as our supreme body. We have been in the business since 2003, so next year we will be celebrating our 15th anniversary. In a nutshell, our activities are divided into programs which target the earliest stage with our JIC Enter program. Then we have a thematic acceleration program called StarCube that we run each year, typically on the topics related to IoT, hardware, and cybersecurity. These are backed by our corporate partners that we work with on a long-term basis in our region. JIC Master is for mature startups that have already paying customers, and we help them to scale up. And Platin targets SMEs that have been existing for a long time. We also have our investment branch called JIC Ventures, which helps very early stage startups get funding before commercial VCs and even business angels are ready to touch that. To give you a rough idea about the scale, we work annually with some 30 to 40 startups and 40 plus SMEs. So each year we have a direct engagement with around 80 companies in the region. So to structure or provide a typology of our clients, it includes starting entrepreneurs, as well as fast-growing startups, mature companies, but also what I call curious corporates. We also do work with big corporate players, and that's mainly the thing that I will be talking about, given the audience consists mostly of corporates. Next one, please. What we do with corporates typically are activities that we present as the open innovation options, and they have different formats. Open innovation session is one of them, which typically involves a corporate client who is interested in a certain specific topic or field and is looking for interesting solutions provided by startups, SMEs, but it may also be matching with interesting research teams at local universities. Idea Labs is more advanced form of ideation workshop where we typically work with an ambitious high-tech company that is looking for external expertise to help them improve the project or scope their product or service. This typically involves a selected group of scientists, possibly also companies or representatives of users for the given use case. And these are very intensive in terms of preparation time and organizing the thing. The lightest of the formats of open innovation activities we do is called 120 seconds, and these are thematic speed dating sessions that we organize usually 5 times per year. We always have a topic with a keynote speaker, again typically a representative of a big corporate who provides their view on the trends in the given sector, what is their reaction to the trends, and this is followed by a format of speed dating that we developed that makes sure that within 90 minutes everyone gets to meet everyone, as typically 30 to 40 participants, and we hope that some collaboration comes out of that. You have some topics of the recent events that we organized listed there. Now I provide some more details about how we actually go about organizing the open innovation sessions and the Idea Labs step by step. I don't want to read it word by word, but basically the concept is that we jointly define an area or problem that the corporate clients wants to tackle. Then we come up with a long list of potential providers of a solution that we scouted for. We use both the portfolio of our clients and we also go and search for companies in the Czech Republic. Then we agree on a shortlist, and the shortlisted companies are invited to a workshop, the open innovation session, where they present their solution. Depending on the client's needs, we can do it collectively with all the participants at once or one by one, depending on the preferences. Next one, please. Idea Labs are a little bit more time-consuming for preparation, as I said. We again start by defining the problem you want to tackle, or the challenge rather. Then we do quite an intensive desk research based on the interesting research results, as well as interesting patented technologies or solutions and interesting technologies that we are aware of, thanks to the fact that we work with startups and SMEs on a long-term basis. Then we invite the select participants that have been shortlisted, and again, we facilitate the workshop. We typically also provide a follow-up support, since the Idea Lab often leads to creation of small consortia of partners, 2, 3 maybe, that want to develop the idea further, and often this requires further funding, so we can also provide support in identifying the sources of funding for future R&D or innovation projects that the consortium can apply for. Right, so that's the format. I listed here a few use cases that we worked, the clients that we worked with in the recent past. As you can see from the list, the topics are very diverse. They cover everything from organic chemistry through nanofibers, nanotextiles, cybersecurity, which is a strong sector in our region. By the way, the whale company that has been mentioned by Gerhard is alumni of our acceleration program, StarCube. They graduated from the program 2 years ago, and now they set up in their branch in Vienna. So I will not go into too much of a detail of the individual cases, but of course, if there is an interest by any of the participants, I'll be happy to share the experience in more detail, as well as provide details about the precise methodology that we use for the individual collaboration formats. So thank you for the moment from my side. I will disconnect now and join you for the discussion later on, and I'm handing back to Gerhard to Prague.
Thank you, David. Once again, greetings to Brno. Thank you very much for your input and deliberations. I would like now to hand over to our second Czech speaker, second expert when it comes to scouting. It's Martin Pejša from the company Creative Dog. Just very briefly, Martin Pejša is the CEO of Creative Dog since 2012. And previously he had a couple of different functions at Vodafone, for instance, being sales director for small and medium-sized companies. Creative Dog is a company specialized in building companies for big corporations, but I don't want to talk about this in detail, but I would like to hand over to Martin. Just give me a second, we activate the camera. And Martin, I would like to ask you to take over and tell us more about your activities.
Thank you, Gerhard. So, in a nutshell, what we are doing is exactly what Gerhard in short described. We are a professional company builder, and we are building companies and businesses tailor-made for large corporates. At the beginning, maybe to put it into the framework of big corporation, what can you do around the startups and how to approach the whole startup world? What are your options? So either you can, in fact, purchase startups that will be and was discussed here, build it internally, of course, dedicate the team and build it internally, or purchase minority shares in many different startups, which we see that more and more companies is doing through their investment arms, or you can, which is very usual, stay at the PowerPoint level. So many great ideas are being generated in large corporations, smart people being there, but of course the execution is lacking the ability to generate interesting and identify interesting opportunities on the market. And this is actually what we found as a good niche in the business, is let it build by someone else for you, and that's what exactly we are doing. On the next slide is our history. We are 5.5 years on the market. I have established the company and leading it, and we have brought 35 startups already to life, and we have also experience of handing over already 11 businesses to our corporate clients. Our main industries and where we are specialized are the service industries, so the digital industries, or the industries that are being digitalized. And for us, it is mainly the energy, fintech, and insurtech. These are the main core competencies. And then we are also in automotive, e-commerce, and e-health industries so far. Roughly 2.5 years ago, we started to expand to other countries. So we expanded so far to 7 other countries. In each of these countries, we have an office, CEO, and fully running team. And as you see, being in Denmark, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, Germany, Netherlands, these are all the surrounding countries. Next logical step will be the Austria. Going a bit more into the detail, because we are a concept that is a bit unfamiliar to most of the corporations, because it's a new concept to let someone else to build for you a whole company. How does it work in the steps? So at the beginning, in the first step, we get a brief that is either usually very generic, like we are working with Škoda company, automotive, which told us we don't want anymore to only produce cars, but also we want to be in the service industry, and we see a big opportunity in things that are happening on the market, like the big global Uber concept of sharing cars. So that's a brief we generate based on that ideas. Then we prototype it in a next step. Then after first 4 months, we bring the product fully to the market in some minimum version, and then run it on the market. And when we see that it has potential and legs to be successful on the market, we scale it in usually next 2 years. And when it's scaled business with customers, revenues, the full dedicated team, then we hand over to our client, including the whole team. So it is like you would buy a startup from the market, but the difference is that you see exactly what is inside, you have the relationship with the team, there is full chemistry working, and you are not buying a rabbit in the black box. Important to say is in Creative Dog concept, we have all the delivery teams needed to establish a digital product fully inside. So all the IT teams, big data analytics, user experience, marketing, digital marketing, all that is inside of Creative Dog. These are some of our companies that we cooperate with, and you see on the next slide that the industries are main the fintech, automotive, insurance, and energy. And now I will give you a few examples so you can imagine what can be created through the process that I just described. First one is called Zonky. It's in the fintech area. It's a company that was brought based on the brief from a client that was a bank, and the brief was, please, we are worried about our business model in 5 to 10 years. Come up with a company that can potentially even beat us, but has a new business model on the market. And we came up with a company, peer-to-peer, that is providing peer-to-peer loans on the market. Currently, it has around 2.5 to 3% of the market share of all banking loans, consumer loans, on the market. And to give you a flavor how it works, usually in average 200 private individuals, so small investors, people like you and me, are investing into one loan on the other side. And the platform in between is actually scoring and collecting money in order to satisfy the investors. Next one is also from the sharing economy area, and it's in automotive industry, and it's sharing of cars. So your car is actually being idle around 95% of the time. You don't drive it. So we ask the people that have the cars available to put it on a platform, and on the other side are people that need the car, and they borrow it from the other people. So it's full peer-to-peer model of car sharing. Next one is in the insurance area, and it's really nice, I would say, case study of how to use big data analytics, because it's this product that innovates how the insurance of cars is created. And in essence, what it does is it motivates drivers to behave better. So you pay your insurance based on how you drive, how do you speed up, how you brake, how you turn the wheel, if you are crossing the speed limits, or are you SMSing or calling during the driving. And the important is that for the customer, it's really simple because what we use is actually this for all the data collection. So you don't have to connect your car. All the data is taken from your mobile as a customer. Last example, this one is for the client Sodexo, which is famous for the company benefits program, selling to large corporations and mid-sized companies. And they asked us with very specific brief, can you develop a company for us and run it on a market that will enrich our portfolio by providing the corporations with a product that they can offer to their employees as a benefit to go into the fitness and have active, healthy life. So what we created is the card where employees of a companies can go to today 1,000 places in Czech Republic and get free access to any sport or cultural activities, and it's financed by their employer as an employee benefit. So these would be the examples and some of the clients that were that briefed us for them, and I will hand over back to Gerhard.
Thank you very much, Martin, for your deliberations, because we integrated this presentation from Martin as well to show you that there are more options to scout in Prague. We have a swift switch of our presenters. Our next speaker will be Vlastimil Vodička. Before he starts with his presentation, I just want to tell you, since we got one question from the audience, whether the slides will be available after the webinar. Of course, the slides will be available after the webinar. We will send it out to all the participants who logged into our webinar for scouting for targets, talents, and startups in the Czech Republic. With this, I would also once again encourage all participants to post questions in the online chat function that all the participants have, because we will have this Q&A session at the end. We want to make it very interactive and try to make it as added value as possible for all the participants, because now we have all the array of scouting experts here assembled in one webinar, and it would be good to use this opportunity. With any further ado, I would like to hand over now to Vlastimil Vodička. He's the CEO of Leadspeaker. It's a specialized company, startup even, specialized in digital scouting. The interesting thing is that Vlastimil has also experience when it comes to the Austrian startup ecosystem, because he worked quite a long time also for the Austrian Pioneers Festival, and thus is most qualified to tell us more about also the differences between the Austrian and the Czech startup ecosystem. But as I said, I don't want to keep you any longer from his presentation. So Vlastimil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gerhard. Good morning. My name is Vlastimil, and I was thinking how to improve startup scouting. As Gerhard said, my heart is a little bit split between Prague and Vienna, and I was in the past involved in a lot of startup scouting projects, especially for Austrian corporates. Finding good startups costs money, time, human resources, and energy. To find very good startups, you actually need to spend a lot of time going to startup conferences, look through or browse internet sources like AngelList, Crunchbase. You need to be always up to date. You need to check what's happening on Facebook groups like Austrian Startup Involved, and you need to also look what's happening in what accelerators, etc. However, you will never be able to cover all the good ideas on the market, because one of the reasons is that the good ideas don't have time to pitch on startup competitions. They just need to work. They focus on the business. I was there many times, and I know this process. That's why we developed Leadspeaker. Leadspeaker the lead speaker, you tell us what you want, what you're looking for. We need 1 or 2 weeks, and we deliver good quality startups. And we are already involved in, and we cooperate closely with Austrian companies. Our partner in Austria is Bonaventure, and they were running multiple projects like for companies like Kapsch, Wien Energy, and Swarovski, and more Austrian corporates. So how do we do it? Machine learning and a little bit of big data. No, really, we utilize machine learning to find all the best matching startups on the internet, even those not listed in any other open startup database. In fact, in past year, we have been monitoring and indexing more than 100 startup sources, all the Facebook groups, all the startup databases that are out there, web pages of accelerators, web pages of startup competitions, and we built a huge, massive data set that has been validated by 12 of our analysts. And in total, they spent 6 human months basically clicking and validating data for their quality and for their relevance in different industries. We use this huge data set to teach an algorithm, which is right now indexing every newly created web page and compares them with this data set. So, long story short, we are right now able to find startups that just created a web page because they look like a startup. And me, when I was searching for a startup, I was able to recognize that this web page is a web page of a startup because the design is very similar, the structure is similar, the language that they use, like we are disrupting the industry of XYZ, is very similar. If you look on the section contacts, you will see that everybody is a C-level executive, and all the marketing people, everybody is on the page. So if a human is able to recognize this is a startup, then we are able to recognize it as well. And then we have this analyst who need to verify that it is a startup. For this is all we need is 4 simple steps. Number 1. We need to know, we understand the client's needs. Number 2, we look for them, we scout startups. Number 3, we contact them. This is a little bit of our secret sauce, but it's all white labeled. Nobody actually hears that this speaker is doing it. Happy to talk about it more later. And the number 4 is results. We have top conversion rate. Usually we need to get 100 or 300 relevant startup applications, we need to contact 1,000 right startups. Of course, it depends on the region. In bottom line, we take care of everything, and you get results. In 2017, Lead Speaker had 52 projects. We built a massive database, and we had great conversion rates. Yeah, look how happy Konstantin is from Axel Springer Plug and Play. We already agreed on 4 another projects, and this is Magdalena from PwC for Central and Eastern Europe that just finished a project yesterday with us, and the quote, "You found startups which are not even publicly visible," is official quote from PwC. Here are some more happy clients. Some of them are probably already known for you. And here I prepared one success story that I would like to share with you. It was in last year. We ran a project for Vodafone Idea of the Year, and we've been searching for startups in the field of AI. We found a bunch of smart people in the Czech Republic that built an amazing algorithm that had 99.9% success rate. They were able to recognize voice of a bird in a forest. Great technology, But what about to apply this technology in energy sector? Or what about to apply it in automotive? So during some mentoring and also during the acceleration process, this company built a product. They combine predictive analytics, they combine their natural language, neural networks and sophisticated IoT devices to build a product that is right now used by a lot of automotive companies in the Central Eastern Europe. And basically what they do is that right now they are able to recognize machines, broken machines by sounds. They not only recognize what is wrong with the machine or what broke down, they are able to predict when is it going to break down. So for the corporate company, it saves a lot of money. They can plan when to repair it, and they can calibrate it, and they decrease the idle time. This is one of these. So this is one of these hidden gems in the Czech Republic, and not always they didn't know that they are an IoT company. They didn't know that they are actually an automotive company. But what we knew is that they have this machine learning technology because they had it on the web page. I would like to quickly talk about some what I see as a critical success factor for corporate companies to work with startups. It's not enough to just search for them and then look at some list or make them just apply to some competition. You need to have clear strategy. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to cooperate with them? Do you want to integrate them in your company, or do you want to build your own startup? This is something that you need to consider before you actually start searching for startups. The next step is really important for, and in my point of view, for corporate clients, to work with startup is a great opportunity because it's for you quite easy to fail. 9 out of 10 startups fail. You as a corporate company, you can run an innovation project, generate 100 good ideas or interesting ideas every half a year. You can select 10 of them, you can try it out. If 8 of them fails, it doesn't cost that much money. This is the startup life. Startups grow fast but die faster. This industry is very dynamic, and I believe that Czech Republic is a great place to test interesting ideas for lower cost, I would say. And yeah, that's some contact details. Thank you for your time, and if you're interested to know more, let's talk business. And I'm handing over to Gerhard again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vlastimil. Very interesting what you do when it comes to digital scouting. I would like to invite now all the speakers to switch on the cameras and join us. And we will start now after the presentations with the Q&A session. And I'm very happy that we have a couple of questions already. Also, the sun came back in Prague, which is nice to see. We have the first questions from the audience. The first question I would say is directed towards Vlastimil. The question is, do you operate in Scout, or are you focused with Lead Speaker only on the Czech Republic or also in entire Europe?
So Lead Speakers right now, most of the projects are actually outside of Czech Republic because the market, the Czech market, or the Czech corporates are finding out only this year that this is interesting way. Lead Speaker runs projects outside of Europe. We have partners also in San Francisco. We run projects in San Francisco, in Miami, in Ohio, and one of our first projects were actually in Asia and Tokyo. So we are global, and but of course we are very strong in Central Eastern Europe because this is our domestic market.
Second brief follow-up question for Vlastimil. One question says, what's the conversion rate if you approach more than 1,000 startups, for instance, for a project? What's the conversion rate? In the end, what's the shortlist?
So the conversion rate very much depends on what you offer to startups. It's not the data are very important, but you need to know what actually are you offering, because there is a lot of happening on the market. This is what we very often do. Always when we start a project, we have a kickoff meeting where we discuss or we advise what you need to communicate to make the conversion rate better. In average, we have approximately 16% conversion rate, which is, if you want 160 startups, we need to reach out to 1,000 companies. That's in average. From cold email to actually finished application and sometimes a video and full information about the startup. In some sectors, it could be more like agriculture, because there isn't that many programs for this market.
Thank you, Vlastimir. I have another question from the audience, and while we are answering the question, once again, I would like to encourage all participants to post questions via the chat function and make it as lively and interactive as possible. The question for David in Brno, but I think it's a question that is relevant for all the speakers we have today. What do you, David, perceive as the biggest barrier to engagement when it comes to cooperating between corporates, Austrian corporates, and Czech startups?
Well, I think generally the biggest barriers are cultural. I mean, this is generalizing, of course, and there are differences, but I would say cultural in the sense of expectations of time frame, flexibility in reaction. It depends a lot on how the open innovation process is organized within the corporation, but what we saw in some cases is that corporates are very keen to explore this possibility, but when it comes to reaching the point when there is a match in expectations about the technology, then the whole process tends to take much longer than was foreseen. And the startups have to understand this very clearly from the beginning, what the process is and what they can expect in what time frame, and vice versa. So this is probably, if I was to pick one thing, that's the time horizon and expectations related to that.
I have another question just coming in from one of the participants. It's, I think, best to be answered by Martin. It's about the difference. What's the advantage? What do you perceive as the advantage if you build a company or a startup from scratch by comparison to scouting for an already existing startup in the Czech market?
Okay. So I think 2, 3. One would be from the very beginning, because we work, or from anyone who would build it from outside for a corporation, works based on specifically on the brief. So the result is very tailor-made. So there is limited cannibalization. There is clear match to the product portfolio or the target groups, where the original company, the mother companies, and the new product where it competes. Second, when you invest into startup, or when you purchase actually the full startup from the market, you're in a way purchasing the black box. Even though you do any kind of due diligence, there's always some kind of surprise. The way how the company building works is actually that for the full 3 years from the original idea all the way to the handover of the whole team, we are on weekly connection with the investor, the mother company, and in that way you know exactly the people, the whole time you know exactly what's happening, what are the pluses and the minuses of the new product, the new business on the market, and that is a big value. And third, probably also the chemistry. The whole time for 3 years you are in connection with the team, and at the end you are taking over something and a team where there is a good fit naturally already between the corporate client and the startup.
Thank you, Martin. I have another question because I think that's the most important fact why we thought about organizing this webinar in the first place, because our main target group here is Austrian corporates. And I would like to invite all 3 speakers now to give us one tip. What's the homework? What kind of homework does a Austrian corporate have to do when they want to start to scout for trends, talents, targets, etc. So what kind of homework, what kind of preparation does an Austrian corporate have to do? So perhaps some quick replies to that question. I would like to start with David in Brno again.
Okay, well, I think the homework is mainly about setting clear objectives of what the corporate expects, and again, in what time frame, and having a clearly designed internal responsibilities for the individual stages. That's what I would say as kind of general homework.
Vlastimil?
Yeah, I agree with David. The corporates need to decide if they want to cooperate, if they want to invest or acquire, or if they want to build on their own or with third parties, for example. So this is the homework. They just need to agree on what's the next step. Otherwise, nothing happens.
Martin?
From the experience, we see that the strongest cooperation is with companies that define clearly who is the responsible person inside, so that it's not all over the company and several people talking into innovations and looking at the market and having second jobs inside of the company. We see really clear advancement with all the partners that have one single person, full-time job dedicated to a brief that is exactly purchase startups, invest startups, build them, let them build them, well, it's someone else. Copy them, yeah. Whatever. But full-time person, nothing else inside of the company responsible for it.
Thank you, Martin. I see another question coming from the audience. I think Martin mentioned it briefly in his presentation as well already. What's a reasonable time frame for a scouting project from A to Z? I know it's difficult, I guess it depends on the size and the matter of the project, but perhaps Martin, to start again, what's the overall time frame that an Austrian corporate would have to bear in mind when they want to start a scouting project in the Czech Republic?
I think it's from around. It's I think the Vlastimil can answer really well the side of the actual scouting time frame, when it's actually the build up and from idea to prototype it's 4 months, and actually to bring it to the market what it's around usually 4 months, and that's our time frame that we always try to keep. And the only thing that can stop us from that is sometimes regulation, because we are in many regulated businesses, from e-health, insurtech, fintech, and many times we have to deal with the national banks in the countries where we are, and that of course can take a longer time. But from perspective of putting the whole team together, building it, IT, tax, all the necessary but not favorite stuff also around startup has to be done within 4 months.
Vlastimil, what's your perspective on the time frame?
Yeah, basically I agree. Like, to scout startups, it can get very quick. Right now, in November, Lead Speaker was involved in 12 projects in the same time. What really is important is the next step, and this is what can take time. Once we deliver, we always need somebody internally or external who will take over and who will make sure that things happen. That's why we have partnerships in Europe, also in USA, and right now new one in Asia that takes care and actually they basically what Martin said. A dedicated person, it can be internal, it can be external, but somebody who makes sure that the milestones will be achieved.
Thank you. Vlastimil, David, quick answer at the end of our Q&A session.
Yeah. I absolutely agree, and I think there's not too much to add. I think the scouting part is the easier one. It's the shortest one, and it's a matter of weeks, even days in some cases. But what is important is that the process is well prepared in the stages before that. That is the agreeing on the topic, and then of course the follow-up, which can take months. If we have cases which took over a year to when the project itself, when the agreement was reached between the client and the partners, it took 12 months to develop a prototype because it was a pretty serious piece of R&D involved.
Thank you, David. At the end of the Q&A session, I would like to highlight very briefly that this webinar that we organize as Außenwirtschaftscenter Prague is just kind of a kickoff activity, and we plan to support Austrian companies throughout next year, 2018 and beyond, with specific services. We will offer Austrian corporates that are interested in the Czech market specialized individual business trips or scouting trips, and we are also considering to organize as a next step, that was also discussed here in the webinar with our speakers, to offer workshops or, as David and Bruno calls them, open innovation sessions, hackathons, similar events, so where we on a very individual basis try to service Austrian corporates looking for Czech trends, targets, talents and startups. So with that, I would like to hand over to Christian Miller and want to conclude the Q&A session, basically. Thank you.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich glaube, Sie sehen zum Schluss, bei unserem nördlichen Nachbarn tut sich da in diesem Bereich so wirklich einiges. Es lohnt sich durchaus einmal auch vor der Haustüre nachzusehen, wo gibt es Innovation und Talente. Wie Gerd Schladler schon gesagt hat, ist mir ganz, ganz wichtig, dieses Webinar ist keine Eintagsfliege, nein, das ist eine Art Kick-Off für eine Reihe von Veranstaltungen und auch individuelle Services, die wir für Sie erbringen wollen. Würde mich freuen, wenn wir uns in Zukunft öfter sehen, hören oder vielleicht auch schreiben würden. Danke für die Teilnahme an unserem Webinar.